as a group, we ran a bit of a poll, an internal poll on what questions we thought were the most important questions. And we had 4 that were actually very close questions. So I've teased them out a little bit as we've been sitting here. I'm going to pitch the first one to Ian and Jane, but as I'm doing this, please, if anybody that's been watching wants to pop questions into the chat, there's a lot of room there to do that. So please go for it. Ian and Jane, you discussed both faith and having a budget. I know the short answer might be yes. Can you live by both of those? But is there more that you can add to that theme, that topic for us, faith and a budget?
Yeah, sometimes it's really hard because you just don't have the money there to cover your expenses. And I remember Brother Andrew, who ministered into Eastern Europe. It was called God's Smuggler, and he had a principle where you just trust God each day for your daily needs. And if you're in that place of having absolutely nothing and living by faith, then that's what you've got to do. You can't just generate money from nowhere. You've got to listen to the Holy Spirit. And as we said before, sometimes it's manna from heaven. It really is. Where the Israelites, they had nothing to eat, and yet God provided for them until they got into the land, and then they were called to actually work the land and trusting God that He would bring the rain and make those crops grow so they would have food to eat. So yeah, it's a real mixture, and that's living by faith. It's like working at the 10th hour. I remember we had to go to a conference once in the States, and we got the money for the airfares, and that's what we had in our pocket, and we actually bought the airfares but had no money for the conference we're going to, or food or cars or anything. And yet by the time we actually left, God had actually provided the money for us to do that. So yeah, and you often at the 11th hour.
I think the most important thing is that, you know, when you're hearing from God as a married couple, you both must hear the same thing and be in agreement with each other and with God, because otherwise you're going to end up playing the blame and shame game. You know, a lot of people, if one person in that marriage is saying, oh, I've heard from God and we need to do this, you're going to find yourself coming very unstuck, because both Ian and I heard that we were to come to the Gold Coast, right? And it was a big sacrifice, even more for me than for him. Our jobs, our family, and the babysitters, and, you know, everything. And everything, just because it's from God doesn't mean you won't go through the trial and the testing, because Satan hates it when we step out in faith for God, right? He hates it. He will try everything he can to discourage you from doing what God has asked you to do. And so if you are not in agreement with each other, you're going to end up arguing and being angry with one another and blaming the other person. So to me, you've got to hear from God, then you can act in faith. Don't act in presumption, because that will never work.